Hello guys, welcome back to the quantity surveying workshop and to another video. In today's video we are going to be treating how to build up rates for our block work. So as you all know, block work is made up of different materials. Sometimes you can use brick, that's land crates. Sometimes for load bearing walls we use what sand crate blocks. So we're going to be using sand crate blocks for our examples in this video. So as you all know, sand crate blocks, that's hollow sand crate blocks, come in two forms. That's 9 inches or 2 to 5 mm block, or 6 inches, that is 150 mm block. So to build up our rates, we are going to be using our bill of quantity extracts. It says 2 to 5 mm sand crate block laid in stretcher bond in cement sand 1:5 mix mortar. So what can you deduce from this bill of quantity extract? We can deduce that we are going to be using mortar of 1:5 cement and sand to lay our 2 to 5 mm hollow sand crate block, and it's stated that it should be laid in stretcher bond. So now, to build up your rate, you have to ask yourself, what are the two sections we are going to be building this our rate into? The first one is the materials, and the second one is our labor. Mind you, this nature of job requires them to use hand mix to mix the mortar. So there is no need for using plants. So for our consideration, they said that the first thing is 2 to 5 mm hollow sand crate block at 850 naira per block. The second one, bag of cement, is at 8,500 naira per bag. We're going to be using 10 tons of sand at 75,000 naira. Then unloading and stacking the block at 30 naira per block. Unloading and stacking for the bags of cement at 50 naira per bag. So for mixing the mortar per meter cube, is going to take the laborers for about 5 hours to mix mortar per meter cube. So the next thing is the number of laborers we're going to be using. So 2 laborers at 625 naira per hour, and 3 tradesmen at 1,500 naira each per hour for laying the block. And lastly, gag output at 9 hours for 10 meters square of block work. So it means that this 9 hours is what it will take them for the mixing and the laying of the blocks for up to 10 meters square of block work. So after getting all this information, we can now begin building up our rates, starting with our materials. So for our materials, what can we say are the materials needed in this operation? The first one is blocks, the second one is sand, and the third one is cement. So we're going to be starting with blocks. So there is a saying that 10 meters square of block work contains about 100 blocks. So 10 meters square of block work contains about 100 blocks at a rate of 850 naira per block. So we can now see, if we know what is the cost per block, we can now determine what is the cost for 100 blocks. So the cost for 100 blocks now become 850 multiplied by 100, and that will give me 85,000 naira. So after getting that, we will now what cater for the what unloading and what stacking. At 30 naira per block. So the cost for unloading 100 blocks will now become what 100 multiplied by what 30 naira, and that will give me what 3,000 naira. So 85,000 plus 3,000 will now be equals to what 88,000 naira. So after doing this, we will now add our what 10% waste on what blocks, just in case the block breaks. So we'll now say add 10% waste on blocks. So 10% of 88,000 naira is going to be cost to what 8,800 naira. So when we add the two together, that's 88,000 plus 8,800, we're going to be having what 98,800, 96,800, sorry, for what 10 meters square of what Blockwork. So after doing this, we will now go to what the next material, which is what our cement. So the next material is our what cement for our mortar, and the that the mix is what 1:5. So cement will be having a what ratio of 1 meter cube. So 1 meter cube part of what cement is what we're going to be needing to what mix our what mortar. So this should not be new to us because we have been building up our rates for cement right from when we started our concrete. So we'll now say 1 meter cube of cement requires 28.8 bags at what 8,500 naira per bag. Therefore, the cost for 28 bags, 28.8 bags, will now be cost to what 28.8 multiplied by what 8,500, and that's equals to what 244,800. So we're not going to cater for what unloading and stacking the what bags of cement. At 15 naira per bag. So it's not going to be what 28.8 multiplied by what 15 naira. And that is going to be equal to what 1,440 naira. So when we add the two of them together, we're going to be having what 246,240. So after doing this, we will now add 5% what waste on cement. So 5% waste on cement, that's 5% of this price is going to become what 12,312 naira. So when you add the two of them together, what are we going to be having? So we're going to be having 258,552 naira. So this is the cost for 1 meter cube of what cement. So the next thing we're going to be building up the rate for is our what sand. So So for our sand, we have what 5 meter cube in our what mix ratio 1:5. So this is also not new to us. They say that in our information given, we are using what 10 tons of sand at what 75,000. So 10 tons of sand at 75,000 naira. We now need to determine what will be the cost per meter cube of the sand. And what formula are we going to be using to deduce 10 tons of sand towards 2 meter cube? So the formula we're going to be using is what the cost for 10 tons divided by what the approximate of 10 tons in the approximate volume of 10 tons in what meter cube. So we know that 1 tons in meter cube is what 0.625. So if 0.625 is the volume for 1 tons, that means 10 tons will now be equals to what 6.25. So from our formula, the cost for 10 tons is what 75,000 naira. So we're now going to be dividing it by the approximate what quantity of 10 tons in cubic meter, which is 6.25. So when you divide these two together, you're going to be having what 12,000 naira. So it means that the cost of 1 meter cube of sand is what 12,000 naira. So our bill of quantity extra, they say that the mix is 1:5. So it means that we're going to be looking for what is the cost for 5 meter cube of sand that we're going to be needing to attain our mix ratio. So we can now say cost of 5 meter cube of sand will now become what 5 multiplied by what 12,000 naira, and that is going to be equals to what 60,000 naira. So we're now going to be adding what 10% stockpile on the cost for what 5 meter cube of sand. So add 10% stockpile or waste. So 10% of 60,000 is equal to what 6,000 naira. So when you add the two of them together, we're going to be having about 66,000 naira per what 5 meter cube of what sand. So we now need to do our what summary for the what mortar. So our mortar summary now, the first thing is our what cement. So what did we build up our rates for 1 meter cube of cement? 258,552 naira. For 1 meter cube, and then the second material is what sand. And what did we build at our rate at 66,000 for what 5 meter cube. So when we add the two of them together, what are we going to be having? We're going to be having what 324,552 naira. So this cost now will be the cost for what 6 meter cube of what mortar, which is the what summation of what the mix ratio 1:5. So that's 1 plus 5 is equal to what 6. So 324,552 naira for what 6 meter cube of mortar. But we're not looking for 6 meter cube of mortar, we're looking for what 1 meter cube of what mortar. So we now have to what add 25% for what shrinkage. So 25% of the 6 meter cube, the cost for 6 meter cube of mortar is equal to what 81,138 naira. So when we add the two of them together, what are we going to be having? If you add these two parameters together, we're going to be having what? 405,690. So this is the cost for what 6 meter cube of what mortar, but we are looking for the cost per meter cube, not the cost for 6 meter cube. So we can now say the cost per meter cube of mortar will now become what? 405,690 divided by what? 6 meter cube. And that will be equals to what? 67,615. Per meter cube. So it means that the rate for our mortar is what? 67,615 for what? 1 meter cube. So you know that as we started this our build up, we are basing the build up based up of what? 10 meters square of what? Block work. So we are not going to be needing about 1 meter cube of mortar to lay 10 meters square of block work, because 10 meters square of block work is what we are basing our what? Our rates from. So as it stands, to lay 10 meters square of block work would require 0.14 meter cube of what? Mortar. I repeat, it will take 0.14 meter cube of mortar to lay 10 meters square of what? 225 block work. Let me even be very specific. 225 block work. Meaning that if I'm using was 150, it will be less than that. So it means that this is the 67,615 that we are spending on 1 meter cube is too much for the just 0.14 meter cube of mortar we're going to be needing for what? 10 meters square. So we need to release this price to the quantity of mortar we are actually going to be using. So to do that, we'll now say note quantity of mortar for 10 meters square of 225 block is equal to what? 0.15 meter cube. So we'll now add what? 10% waste on the what? Mortar. So 10% waste on this quantity of what? Mortar will now become what? 10% of 0.14 is 0.014. So when you add the two together, we're going to be having what? 0.154 meter cube. So it means that for 10 meters square of 225 block, we are going to be what? Needing 0.154 meter cube of what? Mortar. So since we are going to be needing 0.154 meter cube of mortar, we can now say therefore the cost of 0.154 meter cube of mortar will now become what? If 1 meter cube of mortar is equal to what? 67,615 naira, then 0.154 meter cube will now become what? X. When you cross multiply, we are going to be having what? 0.154 multiplied by what? 67,615 naira, and that will be equals to what? 10,412.71. 112.71. So it means that this is what we are going to be spending for the mortar to lay 10 meters square of what 2 to 5 mm blockwork. So this will now become what 10 meters square blockwork. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to do the word summary for the word materials. So the first material we booked for is our what block, and we stated that the rate is what 96,800 for what 10 meters square of blockwork. And then the next material is our what mortar. Now I didn't put cement and sand separate because we are going to what we are building up our rate for was for the what mortar. So the mortar we built up our rate as what 10,412.71. So when you add these two together, what are we going to be having? We're going to be having 107,212.71. So this is the cost for what 10 meters square of what blockwork. So after doing this, we will now go to our what label. So we're going to be starting with the first operation, which is what the label for mixing mortar. And in our specification, it is stated that to mix 1 meter cube of mortar is going to take what 5 hours. But remember, to lay 10 meters square of blockwork, which is what we are using as the basis of this build-up, it will not require 1 meter cube of mortar to lay what 10 meters square. It's going to require less than that. So, and like I said, it's from when I was building up to lay 10 meters square of blockwork, we're going to be needing like 0.154 meter cube of what mortar. So we need to know how much time it will take to lay 0.154 meter cube of what mortar. So we can now say that if the time to mix 1 meter cube of mortar is 5 hours, if 1 meter cube of mortar takes 5 hours, then 0.154 meter cube of mortar will now be equals to what? X. So when you cross multiply, it will now be what? 5 hours multiplied by what? 0.154. And that will give me what? 0.77 hours. So it means that to mix 0.154 meter cube of mortar is going to take us about what? 0.77 hours, as compared to the what? 5 hours that it would have taken us to what? Mix 1 meter cube of what? Mortar. So now after we've gotten the time to mix our amount of mortar that it will take us to lay 10 meters square of blockwork, we can now what? Cost for it. So you can now say to cost for mixing cost for mixing 0.154 meter cube at 0.77 hours at what? 625 naira per hour. So we can now say, since the time it will take us to what makes 0.154 meter cube of block work. It will take us 0.77 hours at 625 naira per hour. So what will be the cost of 0.77 hours? It will now become what 0.77 hours multiplied by what 625 naira per hour. And when you do the math, it's going to give us what 481.25 naira. So doing this, you've costed for what the labor for what mixing 0.154 meter cube of what mortar. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is the what labor for what laying the blocks. So in our consideration, we said that we're going to be needing what 2 laborers at the rate of what 625 naira per hour and 3 tradesmen at what 1,500 naira per hour. So we need to know what will be the total cost we'll be paying the 2 laborers and the 3 tradesmen at their what rates. So the first one will be for the what 2 laborers. So we can now say 2 laborers at what 625 naira, and that will give us what, when you multiply 625 times 2, it will give us what, this is per hour, it will give us 1,250 naira per hour. And then for 3 tradesmen at what 1,500 naira per hour, it will take us what, when you multiply 3 times 1,500, that will give me what 4,500 naira per hour. So when you add everything together for the laying of the block work, we're going to be having what 5,750 naira. So since we've gotten this as the price, as the cost it will take for catering for 2 laborers and 3 tradesmen as their rates, we now need to know how much it will take them to what lay the blocks. And in our consideration, they said that the output per gang is what 9 hours. So it means that per man to lay 10 meters square of block work, it will take what 9 hours. So we can now multiply the total for the laying of the block work for each of the what laborers we're going to be using. That's for the 2 laborers and the 3 tradesmen. We're going to be multiplying it by what the total number of time it will take them to lay 10 meters square of block work. So we can now say that 3, the output per gang is what 9 hours for what 10 meters square of block work. So if it will take 9 hours to lay 10 meters square of block work, then we can now multiply the costs. The cost for our labor for laying the blocks by what 9 hours. So we can now say 5,750 naira multiplied by what 9 hours, and that will give us what 51,750 naira. So we can now say 51,750 naira. So when you find the total of these two, we're going to be having what 52,231.25. So this would be the cost for what laying 10 meters square of what block work, catering for both the what laying and the what mixing of the what mortar. So we can now do our summary for both the materials and our what labor. So the first one on our list will be our what materials. And for our materials, we calculated the cost for what 10 meters square of block work as 107,212.71, which is capturing for what the block and the what mortar. So we can now say 107,212.71, and then the cost for our labor for both mixing of mortar and what the laying of the block would be what 52,231.25, which is what we just calculated. 52,231.25. So when we now add the two of them together, we are going to be having what 159,443.96 naira. That's 159,443.96 naira for what 10 meters square of what block work. So it means that for 10 meters square of block work that we're going to be laying, we're going to be needing this amount. So after doing this, if it is a contract price, that is if it's a company that is awarded the contract, you will now add your percentage for what profit and overhead. So we'll now add 25% profit and overhead. So 25% profit on 159,443.96 will give me what 39,860.99. So when we add the two of them together, we are now going to be having what 199,304.95. So this will be the what contract price for what 10 meters square of what block work. But mind you, our rates or our BOQ says that we should measure in what cost per meter square of what block work. So since this is the price for 10 meters square of block work, what will now be the cost for what 1 meter square? We can now say therefore cost per meter square will now be cost towards this price divided by what 10 meters square. So we're going to be having what 199,304.95 divided by what 10, and that will give me what 19,930.495. So this is the cost per what meter square of block work. So this is what we are going to be taking to our what bill of quantity as our rates. So doing this, we've successfully what built up our rate for measuring the block work for what 2 to 5 mm or 9 inches what block. In our next video, we're going to be what learning how to measure for 150 mm block work. So we've come to the end of today's video, guys. I hope you derived adequate knowledge from it. If you did, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel because it helps the channel grow. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.